Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm Tim Lake in Albany. A large European offshore wind company is buying a U.S. wind energy developer in a move that could have some ripple effects here in New York State. Denmark-based Ørsted is buying Deepwater Wind, which has 3 ocean-based wind farms in development that would supply power to the New York area. Now, the state also has new land-based wind projects proposed in western and central New York, even on an island in Lake Ontario in northern New York. Governor Cuomo revealing a plan in June to add enough wind energy to power about 1.2 million homes across the state. It is clear that New York under the Cuomo administration is pro-wind and is pushing for more wind. Now, the Deepwater Wind projects are for as many as 200 wind turbines off the Atlantic coast, some around Long Island that they say would not be visible from the shoreline. The Director of Large-Scale Renewables for New York Energy Research and Development, or NYSERDA, Doreen Harris, is joining us now to discuss the acquisition and how the state's expanding its use of wind energy as people around the world are doing the same thing. And thank you for being with us on Empire State Weekly.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak on these issues.
You're welcome. So 2 distinct projects. We have deep water or offshore type projects where the wind turbines would be well off the shoreline, and then we have land-based projects. If these come to fruition, what are we talking about in the next decade here in New York?
Yeah, New York has some of the most aggressive clean energy policies in the nation. Governor Cuomo established our Clean Energy Standard mandate, which requires 50% of our electricity to come from renewables by 2030, which is really leading the fight against climate change here on a nationwide level. As part of it, we are advancing also a nation-leading goal of 2,400 megawatts of offshore wind by 2030. So all that told really puts New York in a leadership position around, again, the advancement of clean energy.
So, of course, a lot of people have asked whether or not it's practical to get into wind energy as much as it will be maybe well-meaning. Is it practical? But there's a lot going on with technology, and there might be reason to think that this is really a time for wind energy to flourish. What are some of the things that are going on in Europe, Australia, even Texas with wind energy that mean it might be successful here?
Yes, we certainly look to other areas of the country and of the world to inform our work, again, to advance these resources in as cost-effective manner as possible. With offshore wind, we certainly look to Europe, who have been advancing offshore wind for decades.
New York has been moving away from the old coal-powered plants. There are many gas-powered plants now, even moving sort of away from nuclear-powered plants. Will wind energy, if these turbines and these numbers are built, will they make up the losses that we see in coal and nuclear? So
we see a future for New York where it's very attainable to achieve our clean energy standard goals. Renewables can serve a majority of our load, certainly in New York, and we see that taking shape very visibly here. We have 22 different wind projects that are operating now in New York State, and we have even more in the development process. Certainly we see a future where renewables will be leading toward the majority of our generation sources.
So the offshore wind projects, one of the big concerns, of course, is that it not have any kind of an environmental impact, and also whether or not it's going to be visible and ruin the experience for everybody. But also then the land-based people don't want to see the turbines. That's got to be a bit of a problem. My understanding is they're starting to be able to make smaller turbines. Is that something that's going to make this a little more palatable for people, say, in Western New York?
One of the reasons for the cost reductions that we're seeing is a circumstance where turbine technology is actually getting larger. These turbines are capturing the wind more effectively in locations like New York. In doing so, they tend to be taller with longer blades. That said, we recognize that to meet our clean energy goals, we need to ensure these projects are sited responsibly, and we're very cognizant of the need to reflect the community's input, environmental considerations, and other users of, in the case of offshore wind, the ocean, or in the case of land-based, the land, to ensure these projects advance responsibly.
So the question is that people have, and I know you recognize this, how do you site a 600-foot tower responsibly? It can be seen from everywhere. It's got to be somewhere, correct?
So in the case of offshore wind, these projects are far enough offshore that they won't be noticeable from the shoreline. That's in the case of these deep water projects, for example, we're talking 30 miles off the coast.
Long Island,
off
for
of
example.
Long Island.
You wouldn't see that.
No, you wouldn't see it. It's over the horizon.
What about the land-based projects?
So in the case of land-based projects, certainly they are in our local communities. And in many cases, these communities have significant benefits that come from
Yes, they
these
do.
projects,
Yes.
from the perspective of jobs, improvements to their schools, their local roads, their community buildings and the like, such that really on balance, land-based renewables offer more benefits than costs for them.
One of the issues on the land-based projects has been that people simply don't want to see them, so they somehow convince their county or local governments to turn them down. Is there a mechanism for the state to come in after that and override or overrule the local regulations on that?
So the state, for projects of 25 megawatts and larger, there is a process called Article 10 in New York that's been in place for a number of years, and all of these large projects are proceeding in that manner. And as I said, Article 10 is intended to really include the views of the communities and the local laws as they may be reflected regarding particular projects. The state has every reason to ensure these projects are cited in a manner that's consistent with the community's input and their local laws as well.
So you're saying the state can do that in certain cases?
The state is interested in implementing these projects in a manner that is reflective of the community's
Okay, I
interests.
understand.
One more real quick question. I think I heard you say that anything generated here stays in New York. That's one of the goals. But is New York working with the other states, say Massachusetts, Rhode Island, to create contracts with some of these big manufacturers and people who are running offshore projects?
So particular to New York, it is required that these projects deliver electricity for New Yorkers. That's one of our requirements for our clean energy standard. But we also seek to benefit from the economic development that will come. New York really has all of the ingredients needed to be a hub particularly for offshore wind manufacturing. And really, New York and NYSERDA particularly have been doing a lot of work over a number of years to ensure that that happens.
So more of a hub than a partner, maybe than with the nearby states.
Yeah, it's going to take the advancement of offshore wind on a regional basis, but we certainly see a circumstance where New York has a lot to offer the industry, and have been working to achieve that goal.
Well, it's certainly fascinating to see the progress that we've made, and we appreciate you being on Empire State Weekly. I know there's a lot more we could discuss about this, and we will as time goes on. Doreen Harris with NYSERDA.